Welcome. This is the Ministry of the Real Truth, and today this specific video is for fellow New Zealanders out there because they found something really interesting in relation to the lost 10 tribes of Israel that supposedly has some connection to Australia and New Zealand. Okay. It's from the Hebrew Nations, a Brit-Am website. Lost 10 Tribes of Israel, Research, Representation and Reconciliation. Okay, it considers popular sections, publications, restoration, ancient Israelite or Canaan, updates, your offline reading, and so forth. And it has YouTube channel entries or videos, okay, and it says the basic Brit-Am principles. And what came to mind was British Israel and their claims that the Jews went to England or Britain and so forth. Okay, and they started up this sect or this movement organization called British Israel, Brit Israel. So this is pretty similar to that. Brit American, I guess. Brit-Am Hebrew Nations traces the 10 tribes to the Western nations, research, revelation of results, i.e. recognition, reconciliation between the 10 tribes of Judah and so forth. That there is a movement amongst Jews to return to the Torah, including full-time learning or serving in the IDF. Parallel movements such as the return to Hebrew roots or evangelical support for Israel, etc. This is all related and connected phenomenon. The Yom Kippur War of October 6 to 25, 1973 was between Israel and Egypt in the south and Israel and Syria in the north. The war was a turning point in the history of Israel and the USA. Well, they were connected, weren't they? One backs up the other. Okay, so what are they about? Should we brief history on them? Okay, I'm not too sure about playing those videos. You might have to watch them at your own time. Don't really want to copy strike. I guess it might be alright. We'll have to test it, see what happens. What are the Hebrew nations, the Brit-Am's all about? Brit-Am Hebrew awareness, advantages of Brit-Am. There's some videos here. Some of their books, payments and offerings, you can donate to them, etc. This man here gives quite detailed video information on what they're all about. Brit-Am Hebrew nations work to research the whereabouts of the 10 tribes among Western peoples, to reveal and represent the findings and implications of this research, and to bring about a reconciliation between the present day Jews of Judah and the 10 tribes in Western nations. Brit-Am Hebrew nations is headed by Yair Davidiy. This guy here, I think, I'm not sure. Our centre is in Jerusalem, Israel. We understand our findings and insights to be consistent with accepted rabbinical sources. So that's all coming from certain rabbis. We do the research, publish the results, and discuss the findings and the conclusions to be drawn from them. We explore every field of information that may be pertinent. Our ultimate authority, however, is the Bible, i.e. the book. The people of the book are the Jews. Yeah, I actually read they were the Arameans. Well, yeah, okay. Let's say in this case they're the Jews, the Judeans, the original Jews. The Jews have proven their ability and potential in numerous fields. They have done this through their learning, scholarship, scientific and other achievements. The state of Israel has also done much in many areas. Parallels to the Jews are Western nations. These encompass countries of Western Europe: Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, France, Ireland, with the British Isles, and the offshoots, or the colonies. Okay, the USA, Canada, here we go, New Zealand, and Australia. The USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. These peoples all together have made their mark in world history. More than any other group, they are those primarily responsible for what is good in Western civilization and its values. Today, both the Jews and the West are faced with common enemies. They are faced with threats to their existence from the same directions. A mutual bond exists between the Jews and the West. This may be partially explained by the influence the Bible has had, and still has, on both parties. There is an additional factor. This is ancestry. The Western nations were founded by peoples who came from Israel, but had lost their identity. Okay. It's that those who broke away, they're still considered Jews, and they can come back and be part of the Jewish nation again, the branch, graft themselves back in. Okay, that came from Israel but had lost their identity. They are the lost 10 tribes of Israel. Okay, this is proven by scripture, rabbinical sources, archaeology, history, and every other field that is pertinent to the subject. Okay, I'll add a note here that if they are, then Simcha Jobovich, in his documentary Quest for the Lost Tribes of Israel, when he went out into the world with a Israeli Jew tailing behind, a cameraman, etc. They came across the supposed lost 10 tribes of Israel. They found the Ethiopians were already known and admitted by the Jews to be true Jews, right? So they were welcomed back on the documentary into Israel. It showed them going into Israel. And then he came across a whole lot of Indians in India, obviously. And if I remember rightly, they made the traditional Jewish matzah, bread for Sabbath. And the Israeli Jew, pale Jew, was quite surprised, was really shocked and surprised that they knew how to make it, because he didn't teach them anything, he didn't tell them nothing, he didn't drop any hints, but they knew how to do it, right? According to exactly how you're supposed to do it traditionally, right? So he was shocked and amazed, surprised, right? So he believed, he actually voiced that these are a true tribe of the Jews, okay, of Israel. Okay, then they went further on and they found some Asians, but Jobovich was saying, you have to be careful because they're militant, they're armed, and if they, because it's like something is drawing all these people back to Israel. It's like a magnetic spiritual force or something like that. It's bringing them all back there. And if these militant Asian Jews go there with their military arms and stuff, they may cause some problems, right? And this is Simcha Jobovich, his claims that it could start Armageddon, and then what else did they find? Black Ethiopian Jews, Indian Jews, and Asian Jews. That's what I can remember. So in regards to this comment, all the ones that are spread out, they could be part of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. They might have migrated from those Middle Eastern regions or Eastern regions, so forth, over thousands and thousands of centuries, ancient centuries or centuries ago. But then there's a problem, like you have the New Zealand Maori, or perhaps we'll just stick with the New Zealand Maori, not the Aborigines at this point, to get our point across, to make it clear. You got the New Zealand Maoris, or the indigenous New Zealanders, who through Gerald Massey of the Theosophical Society, I think, who translated the ancient Egyptian texts and wrote a book around 1889 about how the Maori, New Zealand language, the Maori language, the Maori language was the closest to the ancient Egyptian language, or the Medu Neter, and he shows the comparisons between the Maori words and the Egyptian, and they're very, very similar. Okay, so there may be came across a guy that said, the Maori carvings were found in some of those Egyptian tombs. Right? There's pyramids, not sure on that one. They probably migrated from there and went to Hawaii or Hawaii, according to our cultural traditions in history. May have been in Taiwan, because there's a guy who went to a certain area where these people are from the mountains. They met up and they came across them, whatever, and they said, this is our language, our culture, etc., etc. And Maori guy was quite surprised, or vice versa, that they were very similar. So he was saying, well, they might be, a tribe of Maori that went there. But unfortunately, when they come down from the hills, the Chinese or Asian people there used them as servants and treated them accordingly. We had a young girl as a homestay here with us in New Zealand, in our home, obviously. Very shy, very timid, and before she had to go back, she actually, at some point she said, in her country, she came from Taiwan, whatever, we would be her servants, because her family's quite well off. But she was explaining, basically, that's what happened with those people that this Maori guy was talking about. That's how they were treated, right? So who really knows? Okay, so this guy could be right, could be slightly off. So in that statement I'm saying, are these tribes actually European or white? If the Maori are supposedly some lost descendants of these Egyptians, right? Or ancient Kemet that sailed off, migrated, went to New Zealand in the Pacific Islands, or the Pacific Islands, then on to New Zealand, and been there ever since. Because that's what it sounds like, if that's the case. Okay. Our biblical duty, this is the Brit-Am, and the struggle for national survival along with our ancestral identity obliges us. We in Brit-Am, Hebrew nations, work to spread this information and to draw those who are aroused by it together. This is what we are. So again, on the statement that I made prior to saying this about New Zealand Maori, etc., if there is a book I've come across about the real Jews being black, because supposedly Ham was dark or black, in Hebrew it actually says hot, okay, not so much that it was dark or black. And then that line of Ham, Kim, etc., or Cam, were black. The Egyptians, Ram, is it? The descendants were of Cush, Mithraim, and so forth, right? The Ethiopians, the Egyptians, etc., who were supposedly dark or dark-skinned or black. They're not totally. If this audio book written by a European, W.L. Hunter, is 100% fact, then this blows this away. Okay, this claim that, well, would it be specifically for a certain people? Yeah, rather than the Maori people. It totally changes the game. Let's say that. Okay, so yeah, I'm not too sure if I should play these videos because I don't want to strike, but it's actually not on YouTube, so have a quick look at it. To hear what he says.
Shalom. This is Yair, Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. I represent Brit-Am, movement of the 10 tribes of Israel, also known as Hebrew nations. Brit-Am, Hebrew nations. We research the whereabouts of the lost 10 tribes. We have found them amongst Western nations, and we bring knowledge, awareness of our findings to other peoples. We promote this knowledge. That is what we do. Brit-Am is what we call ourselves, is what we are known by. Brit-Am. Brit-Am in Hebrew, it means covenant or union or bonding together of the peoples. Brit-Am, with Brit, covenant. Brit-Am. A friend of ours, Cecil Davis, who passed away not long ago, Cecil Davis, he pointed out that the word Brit-Am may also connote Britain and America. Brit-Am. And the two major nations amongst whom we do find the lost 10 tribes are America, North America, and Britain and the offshoots of Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and so on. And so this is important. We find the lost 10 tribes amongst Western peoples. We don't say that everyone in those areas is descended from lost tribes of Israel, but we say that is where the lost 10 tribes are. That is the bottom line. That is what we concentrate on emphasizing. That is where the lost 10 tribes are to be found. Originally you had 12 tribes of Israel. These 12 tribes of Israel split into two different sections. The northern section became known as the lost tribes of Israel, the tribes of Israel, and they were conquered by the Assyrians and taken into exile, whereas the southern section remained, and from the southern section we have the tribe of Judah. We have the kingdom of Judah, which was comprised originally of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, after that of most of the tribe of Levi, all the tribe of Levi, and after that of minority representatives of all of the other tribes, so that amongst Jews, amongst the Jewish people, you have all of the tribes of Israel there, but they are dominated by Judah and Benjamin and Levi and others, and they give expression to Judah through them, through what they are, that is the Jewish people. Whereas the 10 tribes, the other 10 tribes, were destined to give expression to themselves in their places of exile to fulfill what they had to do, and each of the two different sections had their own task in the world to fulfill. This has been discussed by commentators on the Bible, such as Nachmanides and others, whom we have quoted, and so this is what we have. So we represent Brit-Am. We are Brit-Am. We give expression to Brit-Am. Brit-Am is an expression found in the Hebrew Bible, found in Isaiah, the book of Isaiah chapter 42. The book of Isaiah chapter 2, when he speaks about becoming a light to the Gentiles, of upraising the Gentile nations and non-Israelite nations, and promoting them, bringing them forward, one could say. And also in Isaiah 49, where too he speaks of establishing new countries, new nations, and being a civilized influence upon the peoples of the earth, as the lost 10 tribes were destined to do. And this was what they had to do, and this is one of the reasons why we went into exile, why they went into exile. And we have discussed this in separate talks, and whole books we have dedicated to the subject. So this is what we are. We are Brit-Am, and we research the subject. We research the subject from all different aspects, from all different types of sources. We use the...
Okay, and that's part of that video. You're going to look at this one, see what he has to say here, in part.
Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. I represent Brit-Am. Brit-Am, Hebrew nations, an organisation that researches the whereabouts of the lost 10 tribes. We look for where the lost 10 tribes are, And we have proven it. We have found the lost 10 tribes amongst Western peoples. This is what we do. This is what we dedicate ourselves towards doing. And we've been doing this for a few good decades. We have written more than 20 books and published them, as well as magazines and YouTube clips, and thousands of articles on the subject, and we have talked about it quite often and done a lot of research concerning it. We have found new findings, we have discovered new information, received new insights from the Bible, from rabbinical sources, from historical sources, and we publish it and we talk about it. And this is what we are about. We are about revealing who the lost 10 tribes are, working towards having people become aware of their Hebraic ancestry, of where they come from, of who they probably are, or most likely are, or at least of the people around them, or the places that they live in, what is the biblical significance of Western nations, according to the Bible, according to Scripture, in the light of rabbinical and historical sources, and showing that these people contain a good proportion amongst them of those who are of Hebraic ancestry or descend from the lost 10 tribes of Israel.
Okay, and he talks more. What's that in your own time, at your own leisure? So he's saying there's a British American connection. Okay, so and they've found through their personal research, etc., evidence that the lost tribes of Israel are scattered amongst the Western world and happen to be in part in Australia and New Zealand. Okay, so if this audio book I was mentioning, written by a European, is 100% fact, okay, irrefutable, infallible, the evidence proves itself to be 100% or more evident, then he could be incorrect, okay, or it's all about the European. He's talking about the European, not the Maori or the Aborigine, right, who could be descendants from Africa, because apparently the Aborigine, it took him 60,000 years, it was proven by an Australian rockologist or whatever he was, archaeologist, that the guesstimated prior to that was actually out. Okay, it was 60,000 years it took them to walk from Africa and get down to Australia, where they became the indigenous people they are today. Okay, so I think he's really saying it's the European people. Okay? And if he is, and that audio book, as I said, proves to be 100% fact, written by W.L. Hunter, summarised by Jim Locke, okay, on LibriVox.com, then if they were like Ham, etc., were actually black, then he's incorrect. Right? Okay, and it's a white or European clone of these original African or black descendants of Ham, Kim, etc., according to the Genesis account. Okay. Yeah, well, as he said, they've done the research, published the results, and discussed the findings and the conclusions. Okay. They're saying it's in the Bible, so again, if these people from Ham, Jam, or Kim were black, then it's completely wrong. Okay, it's an error. So, yeah, don't rely on my perspective. Go and do your own personal research, New Zealanders, Australians, and find out if this guy is, onto something and he's telling the truth, or he's full of baloney. Okay, it's not a direct attack on this guy. I never met the guy, don't know much about it, but all the information is here on this Brit-Am. Okay, so you go do your own personal research and so forth. Don't rely on mine. I could be completely wrong. And if you like this, then it's a bit of New Zealand history, perhaps Australian history, subscribe to our channel. give us a like, or thumbs up, a couple of thumbs up, and add your comments down below, because you may know something more than I do and enlighten me on it. That would be interesting. So we look forward to your comments, and we'll answer them as soon as possible. And yeah, Kiwis, New Zealanders, go amongst your friends, strangers, whoever, your family, who we come across, right? Your Christian friends, your Jewish friends, whatever, and say, hey, supposedly we have we're part of that 10 lost tribes and have a connection to Israel. Enlighten us on it. Is this guy here correct? You know of him, or is he totally baloney? Okay. And don't forget to set that bell so you get notified of any other great videos that the Ministry of the Real Truth create and bring to your attention, so you don't miss out.